Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, Maverick family. I'm Rick Walker. This is the Maverick News Channel. You are watching the Freedom Reporters.
And hello, I am your co-host, Brenand Kennedy. It is good to be back after Easter weekend. I hope everybody had a lovely time. For those living in Southern Ontario, yeah, it's snowing.
It is. It's snowing right here. But I think it's going to warm up in the next day or two. So I'm hoping this is sort of winter's last stab at us. I'm really getting tired of the snow and the cold. Although, really, it has been a pretty mild winter here where I live. So I really can't complain too much. And did your kids get lots of Easter candy? And did the Easter Bunny treat them well? That's what I really want to know, because that's what's the most important.
Yeah, it was a great Easter, and all was well. We did not find the Easter Bunny, though. So I mean, we tried to catch him, and it didn't work out.
I know. I try to catch him every year myself. I set a trap. I have motion sensors with lights and everything. And I just, every year, he just slips in, slips out, leaves his candy, and away he goes.
Elusive.
He's a slippery little devil. But it was a good Easter weekend.
Yes, it was. It was very good. But hey, I'm extremely happy to be back after a 3-day hiatus, and I'm recharged and ready to rock and kick butt.
And quite a few stories to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Justin Trudeau and his virtue signaling with regard to the 40th anniversary of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I'm going to rip him on that, as you might expect. I'm also going to do something I didn't want to do. I'm going to talk about the Stu Peters video, which some might say is a documentary. I say it's really just an interview, called Watch the Water. I've been trying to avoid it, but people keep messaging me and they keep saying, "Have you seen it? What do you think? What do you think of that video?" So I'm gonna talk about it, and I think, Brendan, you might have a few things to say about it as well. But be forewarned, I'm going to say things that a lot of you folks probably don't want to hear, and then I'm going to go beyond that, and I'm going to say some more things that you probably don't want to hear tonight. But stay tuned, and if you want to hear what you don't want to hear, then you've come to the right place, because I'm not a blind follower, and I'm gonna again call it like I see it. So stay tuned for that. If you wanna take it all in, I'm gonna give you a different perspective.
And I think that's needed. That it is being talked about heavily in different circles. A lot of people are buying a lot of things with it. I'm not sure. So I'm going to be more interested in your perception of what happened with that. And I know you and how you operate. And
yeah.
Usually when you have something to say, it's always worth hearing, listening to. So
yes,
I mean, there's crazy stuff out there. Like, there's legitimate fake news outlets out there that aren't necessarily the Babylon Bee and that sort of thing.
Well, we'll get into that, and we'll also get into, I think, a little bit about Alex Jones and InfoWars and his financial woes. And I have a few things to say about that tonight as well. So stay tuned for that, because I've got a lot to say tonight about a few key stories, top stories from today's news cycle. What else do you have on tap there, Brendan, on your end?
Oh, we have that. We also have, so it looks like people are making decisions. So Ukrainian people who are fleeing a war-torn country at this point are making decisions to not come to Canada due to the high cost of living. So I think that's worth talking about. That we don't have it so good here right now, where even finding a place to rent and renting it comes at a very high cost, and it's not going to be achievable for everybody. And it also depends on where you live and other factors like that. But we talk a lot about inviting people into Canada who are escaping these things, but we don't ever talk about what's the realistic situation on the ground. And I'm not sure if we'll have time for it, but if we do, it does look to me like CBC Canada, the Communist Brainwashing Corporation, is cheerleading things that are happening in Shanghai. So I'm not too happy with them about that. And I would like to call it out if we have the opportunity to. If not, we can save it for a different time. But lots of people are in great distress in China right now and have been locked in their homes. People have been sent to quarantine camps. People are going hungry. I did share with you guys a few nights back video footage of what's going on there with people screaming outside of their balcony windows and that sort of thing. It's not a pretty sight. It's like a page out of some sort of science fiction book or something like that. I'm not too happy with it, but I'm definitely even less happy with the CBC kind of cheerleading it and not giving the full picture of it.
Yeah, well, honestly, I haven't really been watching the CBC. I don't watch them much. So,
it's an article.
Okay.
It's an article I stumbled upon. It could might even spark a Rick rant.
Okay. So where shall we begin tonight?
Well, that's your call. You want to do the water stuff? Watch the water
Let's get
stuff
right
first?
into it. I've been trying to avoid this, honestly, because it seems like it's a little bit volatile, and I'm not a doctor, but I am a journalist, and I've been around the block a few times, and I can distinguish between real information and clickbait. And I got to tell you, Brendan, I came to the conclusion about a year ago that just because people are on the freedom side, it doesn't make them immune to crazy ideas. And it doesn't make them smarter necessarily. And I've seen people on the freedom side follow false prophets. And I've seen false prophets lead people astray. I've seen people get hurt because of it. I've seen people charged, fined, because they're following bad advice. I've seen people subscribe to information that is clearly not based in facts. So I've seen some, and I'm going to elaborate on that after we kind of get into this Stu Peters video called Watch the Water. For those of you who may have seen it, it lays out an argument or a story with a doctor. His name is Dr. Brian Ardis. His premise is that the COVID virus is man-made, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, about the way I'm analyzing or interpreting the information that was portrayed or conveyed through this video. I'm going to call it a video. I don't believe it's a documentary. It's portrayed or put forward as a documentary, but it's basically just an interview with this doctor, and it has some fancy production to elevate its I guess credibility or perceived credibility. But it's just a video. It's an interview with this Dr. Artis. He suggests that the virus is man-made, but it was derived from or created from snake venom. And of course, in the early days of the pandemic, what did we get? We got stories about
pangolins
that it came from animals and jumped to humans. That it may have been because someone ate a bat in the wet market in Wuhan, which to me seemed crazy. I never thought that was a viable or credible explanation. And then over time, the theory that this was a man-made virus that had escaped from the Wuhan Institute of Virology emerged and gained credibility. And even though it was initially suppressed, and everyone said that you were a conspiracy theorist if you subscribed to that, it seemed to have the most credibility to me. And we've seen now, as more and more information has come out, that even the mainstream media now is admitting that that is the most likely scenario, and that this was a man-made virus that came from research with bats, that were probably bats that came from caves, I think several hundred kilometers away from Wuhan, if I recall correctly, where researchers would go and collect the bats.
And there's video about that from, I can't recall how much time between the events of 2020 and before that. But yes, there is video about this scientist who kind of labels them as like the bat themselves as like the bat doctor or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it's old news, right?
Yes. And so that seems to me to be the most likely scenario that has the most credibility. And the truth is, we may never really know for sure what the source or the cause of this pandemic was, where the COVID virus was created. We may find out, we may not find out, but the idea that it has escaped from a lab seems to have the most credibility. Well, now, after all this time, we have this video from Stu Peters. Watch the Water, it's called. And I didn't watch it at first. I watched a little bit of it, then I left it. People kept messaging me. So finally I did. I watched the thing. And this doctor, who may have the best of intentions, lays out this new theory that the virus was derived from snake venom. Not only that, he's saying that there is snake venom in the vaccines and that's what's being injected into people. Probably from a king cobra, but it could be other forms of or other species of snakes as well, or instead. How does he come to this conclusion? Well, he cites a study here and a study over there, and there's a reference to snake venom in this study, and there's a reference to snake venom in another study. And then he starts to draw lines basically between this document and this document over here. And then he kind of pushes people's emotional buttons. And Stu Peters goes along with this during the course of the interview. And in the course of this interview, he talks about words and names associated with the vaccines, and lays out a more elaborate narrative where he paints a picture of evil and a picture of an anti-Christian movement where the idea is that the use of snake venom is an assault or an affront to God, because the serpent, of course, is a symbol of evil. And by injecting this into all humans, it's like satanic. Okay, maybe. Okay, let's just hold off on these comments. Okay, I don't want to put these up on the screen, Brendan, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Just lay off all that. It's easy to get people jacked up. It's easy to manipulate people with emotion. And it's easy to get people to click on things when you get them emotional. But what we need right now is facts. And we need credible information. You can subscribe to this if you want. But just because there's a reference to something in one document and then another reference in another study, and just because you can take a pencil or a pen on a piece of paper and draw a line from one thing to another, doesn't mean there's really a connection. I want facts. And I'm not prepared to accept information as factual unless I see real tangible proof. And I'm not even sure if the bat story is 100% credible either. That's why I said we just don't know for sure. I'll tell you this, though. This whole snake venom thing, to me, I don't see enough substance in this video to put a lot of stock in it. I don't see enough here for me to put much trust in it. And I feel like I think that what Stu Peters has done here is he's taken little nuggets of truth, the same as this doctor, who again may be a good guy. Maybe he has the best of intentions. Maybe he feels that he's really onto something. But he's going to have to do a better job to convince me. Because until then, I feel like what this video is doing is it's really selling us snake oil, not facts. Okay? Now I'll let you chime in on this a little bit, Brennan. I don't really want to run this video. I don't want to get into this because it's a Stu Peters thing. He can say what he wants, do what he wants. I've got it up here on the screen, but I'm not going to run it. If you want to watch it, you can go to Rumble. It is up. I'm not saying anybody shouldn't watch it. I'm all for freedom of speech, freedom of information. I think people should educate themselves with whatever information is out there. Avail yourself of that information. Maybe you'll find it more credible than I did. Fair enough. Don't just take my word for it. Go ahead and watch it if you want. But be critical. Question everything. Don't just take this stuff at face value. The danger here that I see is that this particular video has, last that I checked, between all of the different postings, probably a couple million views.
Yeah. Easy. And, Dr. Brett Weinstein.
Also, Brendan, your mic is I think, pretty loud. Could you tweak it
Oh,
down
it
a
is?
little bit. Yes, it's quite loud.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't do anything with it. Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thanks.
Okay. Well, Dr. Brett Weinstein, he was one of the first people to come out and talk about the possibilities of a lab leak theory. And he had gone over lots of information about it. And this guy is a evolutionary biologist. He didn't make any mention about it then. And I think that if anybody was going to say anything about that, it would be a evolutionary biologist who would also said, "Oh, wait, yeah, I'm finding a lot of indicators. I'm finding a lot of indicators that point to something more reptilian in the DNA or something or other, but that doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen at all." Secondly, when it comes to any type of documentary thing, I was introduced to Bowling for Columbine, the Michael Moore movie, when I was quite young. And the first time I watched that, I believed I believed everything he said. I was like, "Oh, this very professional sounding guy is spewing off all these facts and everything's well produced and put together." I believed it. But there's a lot of things that are not factual in Bowling for Columbine, and that he does a lot of artistic things that changes perception, and it changes the image on things. It's like you said, Rick. You have to have a critical mind with this, and yeah, I'm not knocking it because I'm just not sure what the answer is, but I don't think it's helping anything. If you know what I mean, the things that are being talked about, it is what it is, though. It's up to us to be critical thinkers and to think about these things and talk about them. And so I'm glad we were at least able to talk about it in that way. Although I don't think you said anything too controversial, you're just like, I don't really buy it, and we can't just look at something like this. And
Well, I don't want to sit here and rip Stu Peters, and I don't want to rip this doctor,
yeah,
but I've seen other things from Stu Peters where I find it hard to just get behind it and accept it. I think he needs to be a little more thorough in researching his information before presenting the information as factual. And this particular video, it does lay out an argument and information in a way that it's being presented as something that people really should be putting their trust in. And it's nowhere near there for me at all. That's really the bottom line. Okay. This video, it is what it is. You really gotta question stuff, folks, before you start throwing in with this, with anything like this, because you can be easily led astray. And a lot of people on our side, the freedom side, okay, and that's the side I'm on, is freedom. They're as vulnerable as anybody else when it comes to poor information, being led astray. And this is a perfect example of that. In my opinion. The thing is too, this stuff is easily tested, these assertions. Is there really snake venom in the vaccines? It's pretty easy to test. All I saw in that video was a reference to the color of the vaccine being yellow, which they say is the same color as the snake venom. Therefore, it probably is. That was the level of evidence and proof that they were presenting to back up their claim that they're injecting people with snake venom. Well, I'm sorry, but You got to do better than that. If you want to find out if there's snake venom in the vaccine, then get yourself a vial of the vaccine and have it analyzed. Is it snake venom or isn't it? It's a pretty simple test, I would think. And my
Well,
guess is it's not snake venom.
I did some research about this because before all this, I've always kind of known that there is snake venom that's used in several different kinds of medicines, and one of the things that they use it is some snake venom affects blood pressure and blood clotting. So scientists can't use the snake venom to develop new drugs to treat illnesses, and this is a fact. And so hearing about it for me the first time, it's like, well, yeah, they use snake venom already for different types of medicines. I'm not. And
Matthew Simard says, challenges us to get a vial of the various types of vaccines and test it. Good luck. Well, I'm not the one saying that it's snake venom. I didn't put the documentary out there. I challenged Stu Peters to go get some vials of these vaccines and have it tested and then prove that it is or it isn't. Because he's the one who had over 2 million people watch his video. And he's the one who's convinced over 2 million people, or at least a good percentage of them, of that audience, that they're injecting snake venom into people. So it's not, the onus isn't on me. The onus is on him and on this doctor. And if they're going to make these kinds of assertions, then they should, because they better be thorough before they start spouting off and getting people all jacked up. Sorry, Brendan, go ahead.
Let me know if you can get your hands on it, and I'll send it to him. Well, I also guess that Canada is throwing out over 1 million doses recently. So, I mean, somebody could go dumpster diving if they wanted. Don't recommend it.
It would not take much to have some analyzed. And there are vials of this stuff in pharmacies all over Canada and the United States. I wouldn't think it would be that difficult to get your hands on a vial, or even a partially used vial, or get some somewhere to have it analyzed. I challenge Stu Peters. Go ahead, Stu Peters. Prove it. Because if you're going to make these claims, if this doctor's going to make the claims, then prove it. Doesn't seem like it's that difficult. Doesn't seem like it's that difficult. And they're the ones making the claims.
Yeah.
So.
And it goes without saying that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
And how can they go around making these claims if they haven't had access to any of the vaccines to test? You better get your ducks in a row, pal, because before you start scaring people, because that's what that video is doing. And that's no different than our governments, our mainstream media, scaring the crap out of people by telling everyone that you're going to die if you're exposed to XYZ version of the virus or this or that. Fear is fear. And you can, just because you're using fear and claim to be on the freedom side, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right.
Yeah, I agree.
Liz says she doesn't think it would be easy at all. You know what? I worked as an investigative journalist for a long time. You want to get it? You can get it. A lot easier than you think.
Yeah.
And as I say, before you start distributing videos to millions of people, or a video, and start making claims, you better get your act together and get your story right.
Yeah.
When it comes to the news, first, whenever possible, factual without exception.
So, with that being said, you're like all these people have worked with these. These are in every pharmacy's freezer or refrigerator across the country. I mean, if a guy in Germany could get 90 jabs, I'm pretty sure somebody could get one of those.
And this guy here is a doctor.
Yeah.
He's a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a doctor. Can't tell me you can't get access. And you wouldn't need a full vial to test it. Anyway, here's the thing. Okay? This is just that's just one example of what I've seen going on. There are other things going on too that really concern me. I like dealing in reality. Okay? Not in fantasy. I don't like people being led astray. I don't like people being hurt. I don't like people being charged with things, getting bad legal advice. So I'm just going to lay it all out. I'm tired of people offering up false legal advice to people or poor legal advice. Here are some examples of things I've seen happen over the past couple of years. This video is just one more example of people on the freedom side being led astray. People don't understand the legal system largely. They don't understand the Constitution. They don't understand the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They don't understand how things work. They don't understand the systems. Why would they? They're too busy being normal people, leading normal lives, going to work. They don't study the Constitution. They don't study the law. And I'm not a lawyer, nor am I a doctor, but I am a journalist with a lot of experience. A lot. And what I've seen happening over the past couple of years is sad in some cases. Because we've seen people get charged by cops because they thought that the charges would be thrown out of court. We've seen people attend rallies and end up being charged by the cops. And they've been advised by people in the group, in a group of protesters, you know, XYZ, and if you follow common law, and then this thing over here says right here in this document that I've got off the internet, and if you follow this, then you can actually sue the government, and they'll throw your case out, and then they'll be marched in front of the Nuremberg trials 2.0, and the next thing you know, Trudeau's going to go to jail. Okay? Get freaking real, people. Get your head screwed on straight. And be careful who you listen to. A lot of this stuff is just people talking out their butts. I've seen people do entire campaigns, which I knew from the beginning would not work, where they were like, when everything was locked down, they were like, yeah, we're gonna have a reopening day. And we're just gonna tell all the businesses on this day that no matter what, we're gonna reopen. And then what are they going to do? You know what? They're going to do a lot. A lot. So some people can afford to do that and face the consequences, and they're prepared to, and more power to them if that's the route they want to go. But a lot of people can't. Maybe they're a bar owner. Maybe they can't afford to lose their liquor license, but the authorities sure will take it away in a heartbeat if they want to make an example out of you. Or maybe you've got a retail operation and they'll shut you down and lay charges, and you're going to go to court, baby. And what have we learned about our Charter of Rights and Freedoms? What have we learned? It's not worth the paper it's written on. Not worth it.
No.
It's a worthless document. It's a joke. It was a joke 40 years ago. It's a joke. It's a joke.
which is incredibly depressing. Like, holy gee. And that's not our goal here today, but
so
and here's another thing to show you what Rick's talking about. And somebody had sent me this and portrayed it off as real, and this is real raw news. This is fake news. People do read this stuff and they do share it, and it's just absolutely baffling. This guy purporting to be Kevin Baxter or something like that. Look at this: 278,688 times that this has been visited, and people are paying attention to this. It's absolutely astounding. And when you go to the About Us section of this website, because I took a pretty good deep look around after, and there used to be another website that was similar to this called The Conservative Beaver, which was something along the same effect. But you go to the About Us, and in the section where it talks about legal disclaimer, it does say that, oh, we are a satire site.
You know what, Brendan, though, but this is not about satire. This is about real shit. Okay, real people being led astray.
You got to let me make my point here. In the About Us section, it says this is about satire, but we are told under legal advice to put this on our website, where they're trying to push it off as it's real, and it's all crap on that website. Real raw news. Like, give me a break. And I'm not trying to. This is just me trying to warn people. Like, there's people who are going to try and mislead you all the time.
This is about people telling you to do things, people giving you false hope, false sense of security. It's about people giving you legal advice. There are people with websites out there right now, and I'm not sure that the legal advice that they're giving people is accurate. Here's one right here. And again, I'm not saying that what they're saying or doing is wrong. I'm not a lawyer, but I wouldn't bet the farm on this. I see this stuff all over the place right now. The power shift. Ooh, the power shift. Yeah, they're going to shift the power. Right. Yeah, why? Because you know what they're doing? They're out there asking people for donations, collecting money, getting people all jacked up, and talking about complicated common law, legalese, blah, 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 where they're launching lawsuits and taking it straight to the Queen. You know how much water I think that holds? None. Maybe about as much water as the snake oil that they're selling over on the Stu Peters channel. Ooh, they're going to shift the power. All right. Yeah, sure they are. You know what does hold water? Brian Peckford.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Last surviving author of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, launching a legal challenge, trying to show that the charter should never have been, that it should have remained in place, that the standard was not met to invoke the notwithstanding clause so that our rights were stripped away. But even then, the problem today is that the charter is worthless because of the way the courts have decided to interpret it, to give all the power to the government, to say, yes, the notwithstanding clause is valid and because there is a pandemic. But more than that, it's any emergency basically now that the government deems important enough. So just any emergency, they use the notwithstanding clause, and basically you have no rights. That's an important point to make. Rights aren't worth anything if they can just be taken away. You have no rights if they can be taken away. Rights are only rights if they are inalienable. If they can't be taken away. Rights are your rights if they come from, say, God, instead of from a human being like Justin Trudeau. But if Justin Trudeau can, with the stroke of a pen, just take your rights away, then you have no rights to begin with. That's sort of the point here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So you can talk about shifting the power all you want. It doesn't matter. What we need is a newly elected government, and we need a new document, or at least the charter needs to be revised, and that notwithstanding clause has to come out so that our rights cannot be taken away, period. No matter what. Will that happen? I seriously doubt it.
Yeah.
Now, what's the other thing people are saying? This is the other thing that I've been seeing online. People are saying, because the Charter of Rights and Freedoms has no teeth and it limits your rights because of the notwithstanding clause, people are pointing to the Bill of Rights. But the Bill of Rights is limited as well. So these claims by people and these people who are saying that all you need to do is if you go to a protest and you're going to be charged, all you have to do is just start citing the Bill of Rights instead. No, that's not true. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly not a constitutional lawyer, but I know enough to know this. The Bill of Rights came from John Diefenbaker, and it was just a piece of legislation. It is not embedded into the Constitution. And because it's just a piece of legislation, there has been ongoing debate since its creation as to whether it's binding on government today or any government that came after the Diefenbaker administration. There has been some legal precedent over the years where the Bill of Rights has been cited. And so it seems to have at least carry some weight within the legal system today. But it is a federal document, and it does not really apply provincially. And that is why the charter was written and enacted and approved. And that was to expand our rights out into the provincial realm. And we saw that seemed to have some meaning back in the 1980s, 40 years ago, when it was finally approved and signed into law.
Mm-hmm.
But that notwithstanding clause, it's proven that in reality, that document is worthless. And that is why we're seeing governments in like Saskatchewan and here in Ontario with Bill 100. The provincial government in Ontario enacted Bill 100 because that really gutted in a permanent way the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because it addresses the Charter, which is aimed at things that on a provincial level. And with Bill 100, it strips those rights away. So if you're out there protesting on the street, that legislation is so broadly written, and it was enacted and approved just within the past week in the dead of night in an almost secretive vote by the Ford PCs. It just does an end run right around that Charter of Rights and Freedoms and gives the province the power to seize property. It gives police the right the authority to arrest you, charge you, convict you, throw you in jail, takes away due process. It makes you guilty until proven innocent. And because it's so broadly written, they can target pretty much anybody they want. And it's pretty clear they're going to be using it on a selective basis to target political opponents.
And that's the bottom line. Like, it's not even a left or right issue, and that's the problem. Is a lot of people who sided leftly and didn't like the trucker protesters. Oh, it's just to keep the pesky truckers away. But
so I'm not talking about, satire news sites. I'm not talking about so much fake news. I'm talking about people leading us astray. We need to be careful who we follow. You need to be careful when you go out and protest to make sure that you're not going to run afoul of the law simply because you're following somebody's bad advice. Chris Sky, where the hell has he taken us? Oh, let's have mass non-compliance. Yeah, right. 80% plus of the population has been injected. 80% plus of the population has been all in on masks, lockdowns. They're full of fear. They've been full of fear. There's some shift now, but you can't have mass non-compliance when you only have 15%, maybe 20% of the population who has not subscribed to the fear. And of that 20%, maybe 5 or 10% are willing to kind of put it on the line? And so what were his plans? Let's have everybody just get on buses on I don't know, what did he call that day? Mass non-compliance day or whatever it was supposed to be. And then drive around airports and disrupt all the traffic and prevent people from getting to their flights. And where did that get anybody? I think that just got some people charged.
Well, the one that drove me really crazy is everybody. Mass non-compliance works, but mass voting, that doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
And
don't vote, he said. Don't vote. Just spoil your ballot.
Yeah. I had a big problem with that. It was especially because Chris Sky does have a history of wanting to make a provincial party. He wanted to make some sort of Republican or something Ontario party. So clearly he believed in some
party.
Yeah, he wanted to. Clearly, he believes in some sort of political answer because he was putting a lot of brain power and a lot of materials in on a political solution, and then out of nowhere goes. I think it was after the scrap with the PPC. So he had a scrap with the PPC about something, and then after that,
him and Maxime Bernier had some sort of a run-in, and so then it became a big feud.
And then after that, oh, don't vote. That'll never work.
Right.
It was like before the fight, you should vote. I'm running in Ontario politics and all this stuff, and then after the fight, don't vote.
So when he came to our community, what did he do? He gets up on stage and then starts ripping everybody that was a PPC volunteer, ripped the party, criticized everybody that was part of the PPC. Okay. Well, thanks for showing up. And then he says, but we all have to stick together. We're all in it together. We got to stay united. I don't know how come everybody's fighting. Yeah, because you came here and you started criticizing a huge portion of the Freedom base, which was PPC members.
Yeah. And
you can follow that Nimrod if you want. You go ahead, okay? But not me. I'm not a blind follower, and you can disagree with me all you freaking want. I don't care. The guy is an idiot. All right.
We have to make this point that he said all the PPC wanted was your money, and now they're gone. Where are they? Where did they go? Mm-hmm. And then he goes, speaking of money, you should buy my book. It's like, what?
Yep. And I'm not here to pick another fight with Chris Sky. Whatever, man. Okay. You keep doing your rock star tours and, with your bus and we've seen the videos of you screaming at the people who support you, calling people, all kinds of terrible names. Chris Sky is not what he appears to be. But he's just one more example of a false prophet. We need to follow real leaders. There are real solid people like, hey, James Topp, right?
Solid guy.
Solid, positive, constructive, marching across Canada, trying
Simple
to bring
message.
people together. Simple message, freedom. There's a guy I can get behind. Absolutely. Support that guy. Go to canadamarches.ca. I'll put his website up right now.
I think by the end of this episode, we should do a check-in. I know he was last in Saskatchewan, but
go to that website, check him out. James Topp.
Yeah.
That's a guy you can get behind.
Brian Peckford. That's a guy you can get behind.
That's right. There's real credibility there.
The JCCF, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. And also, for those who may be interested, they did put out like a 10-part lecture series recently. It is worth listening to. It's credible. It's a credible institution.
Police on Guard for Thee. There's
Mhm.
another organization that from everything I've seen, those guys are straight up, above board, current and former police officers who are standing up for freedom. And I think they have a huge amount of credibility. I'm behind that. I believe in that. I think that has credibility. We need to be careful who we're following.
Veterans for Freedom. That's another solid institution. Recently starting, and we had them on the show previously.
Mm-hmm.
Great bunch of guys. They have a solid message.
Positive, constructive, pro-Canadian, pro-freedom, unifying.
Pro-political solution.
That's right. I've just seen too much pain.
Yeah.
And I've seen too many people led astray. Another example of people being led astray. We're going to serve papers to XYZ public official. Okay. I ain't showing up for that. I'm sorry. I get it. You want to go down there and people are printing this crap off the internet and they look like real, genuine legal documents. And you know how much weight that stuff carries? Nothing. It's worse than nothing. Do you know why it's worse than nothing, folks? Because when you show up at some public official's house or at their office, I don't care where, I don't have a big issue with you going to their house, okay? Because most of these guys have been hiding.
Yeah.
So what are you supposed to do? But I'm not saying you should. I'm not encouraging anybody to. I just get it. I understand why people have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the smartest move to go there with documents that have been printed off the internet so that you can serve them. Because you know what happens after you serve them and you say, you have 30 days to respond or it's an admission of guilt. You know what happens after 30 days as we've seen? Nothing. And then do you know how much credibility you have after that? Nothing. Okay? So think before you act. Do real things. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't show up to places where you're going to get yourself arrested because it ain't worth it. Because at the end of the day, they end up laughing at us. Don't go around telling people to open their businesses en masse the next time we're locked down and defy the authorities unless you're prepared to pay that business owner's fines. and legal costs. Don't give people advice like that. Do real things. There are other things that can be done that are constructive and productive. And yes, you can protest. And yes, we need to do that if you're out there fighting for freedom in the face of tyranny. But don't just follow blindly. Think critically. Question everything. Question what I'm saying. I'm not giving anybody legal advice here. I'm saying be careful what legal advice you do follow. That's my advice, because I'm seeing people follow. I could go on and name other leaders who have sort of faded away over the last 2 years as well, who have led people astray. We need to keep people out of jail.
Yeah.
So they can live to fight another day, and another day after that, and another day after that. And most people can't afford to go to court. So don't give the other side the opportunity to destroy somebody's life through lawfare. Don't run out into no man's land and sacrifice yourself. I'm not criticizing those who have. Some people are on the front lines. They've become heroes in their own right for the freedom movement by sacrificing, by putting themselves out on the front line. Fair enough. Again, in many cases, my hat goes off to people who have done that, especially those who have been persecuted, singled out, made examples of. Pastor Arthur, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't think that he ran out into no man's land from what I saw and purposely sacrificed himself. He was targeted. Because why? First time I became aware of him, he was feeding the homeless in the dead of winter, and the cops came down to shut him down. That's not running out into no man's land. That's being persecuted.
I think he was just trying to do his job as a pastor, and that's what it all comes down to.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But there's a difference, right? But look at what they've done to that poor man.
And
look at what they have done.
His whole family. Big
so
mess.
Keep in mind, they can do it to you too. And to win, you don't have to sacrifice yourself. So be careful what you watch. Be careful what you believe in. Be careful what you put your trust and your faith in. Be careful who you follow. Be careful which leaders you pick. Question everything. Just because someone is on the freedom side doesn't mean they're right. They may have the best of intentions. They may not be intentionally trying to lead you astray. But is the legal advice that you're getting, is it coming from someone who is a lawyer? Is it coming from someone who has real grounding in law? Ask yourself these questions before you run out and say, go ahead, take your best shot. Because if you do that, you might just end up getting shot right here with an anti-freedom bullet. And you don't want that.
No, and we don't want that.
No, we don't. We want everyone to live to fight over and over and over again.
Prosper, have a good life, and that's what it's really all about. And speaking of the Charter of Rights and Freedom, or did you have? Maybe we should hold up on that. Did you want to go through some comments first, and then
let's see, because some people probably think that they probably want to really hit me hard now, especially because I criticized Chris Sky. Ooh. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, take your best shot.
Well, actually, this isn't. They're asking, do you think Chris Sky was planted? It begs the question, but no comment.
I don't know.
I don't know.
A lot of stuff surrounding Chris Sky just doesn't make sense to me. For all the things that he's done, we're seeing other people suffer much more serious legal consequences. Why not him? There are a lot of things about him that make me that just create big question marks for me. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to follow the guy anyway. I'm not going to follow him, and run over the edge of a cliff with a bunch of other people. I'm not going to. So it doesn't matter to me that much, except that I don't like seeing people get hurt. But beyond that, I don't know. Fringe Zora says, great advice, Rick and Brendan. Well, thank you. What else can I say? Where Kevlar, says William Wallace. Yeah. Then that's probably not bad advice either. So sit like ducks, Robert Starr says. I'm not sure what that means. Andre Morin says, yeah, police are a big part of the problem when bonuses are more important than family. Yeah. Sorry, Rick, but you are so wrong, says world's worst gamer. Okay, well, you can certainly disagree with me. Go ahead. Follow Chris Guy, and I hope you have a good lawyer. Rick, are you saying we should exercise critical thinking? Kim RS says. Yep, absolutely. Question everything, no matter what side it comes from, no matter who it's coming from. Question. Question all of it. And then when you think you've got enough information, try to make the best decision you can make, and make the best decision you can make for yourself and for your family.
Absolutely.
Matthew Smart says, I generally trust no one. And anyways, tons of influencers seems to me like they're just tools of controlled opposition, and it seems like it's auto-regulating.
Yeah, and there's examples of that in Canada and the United States where the government's paying influencers, not Chris or anything, but we've covered the TikTok stories. The Canadian government has done the same sort of thing. So yeah, I'm picking up what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. World's Worst Gamer says, why do you think people crave it so much? Crave, not sure what he means.
Oh, he's talking.
He's talking to World's Worst Gamer.
Yeah.
Okay. John Lai says, unfortunately, because Canada is beholden to the crown in England, we have no recourse for revolution, unlike America, where it's in their national makeup and in the Constitution. Joe Bursma says, Rick, better pull the plug from this program. Of course, people have to take their best shot. Watch Alex Belfield and Nottingham Police. They are effed big time. Okay, well, we'll pull the plug at the end of this program when we're done. How about that? Jackie says no hitting.
Yeah, no violence.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah.
Don't be violent. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. No violence.
Moons of Neptune. No, we just want some positivity, Rick. Well, we gave you some positivity. Look at all the positive places you can go. You can go to CanadaMarches.ca. You can support James Topp. You want to talk about positivity? That's positivity. That's constructive. That's real. That's real patriotism. That touches my heart, what that guy's doing. There is a lot of positivity out there.
Yeah. Brian Packford, that's positivity.
That's positivity.
I got the feels good. I got the feel goods all from that. Like,
there's lots to be working toward. There's lots of people to get behind. Even, get behind your church. Mm-hmm. Get behind your pastors. Get behind the Church of God in Elmer. Lord knows they need public support. After all those folks have been through, after the persecution they've suffered, look at how public opinion has shifted more and more toward them and in their favor. That's positive. We're seeing positive change. But in order to get positive change, you need to get behind real leaders who are working toward positive change in a positive and constructive way. Trent Dabb says Chris Guy only thinks of himself. Well, again, I think it's truly unfortunate that he couldn't have stayed on the positive track because he had immense support, especially early on.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been his own worst enemy. He's attacked people and criticized people. And it's been a little weird, I think, as I've watched everything unfold with Chris Sky, because even as videos emerged of him just tearing into people on his tour bus and tearing into people and criticizing people at rallies, standing there in front of people, basically calling them all a bunch of idiots. In spite of that, people continued to support him. It's eroding now. You're seeing that erode. And I've seen people that I would characterize as real leaders distance themselves from him, one after another, people getting away from him.
Or him getting away from them.
Yes, and it's been very unfortunate because I think that the entire freedom movement would have been and could be, maybe still could, if there's some reconciliation there. But if there was less infighting and more unity and less criticism, but it's important to do real things and follow sound advice. That's all I'm saying. Fringe Zora says, follow no one. Well, I don't know about that. I think sometimes you need someone to take the lead on something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another aspect of it, right? Everybody needs a hero.
Well, James Topp is a hero. And what does it mean to follow him? I mean, it means get out there and march alongside him, right? What's he promoting? He's promoting freedom, unity.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with that? He's not telling anybody get out there and get yourself arrested. There's none of that with him. So that's somebody you can follow.
Yeah, exactly.
And support, right? Roseanne Enns Cron says, I agree, Rick. A lot of stuff about Chris Guy don't make sense to me. I don't care for somebody who is that loud and an obvious show-off. Yes, folks, just unfortunate. And maybe he'll redeem himself. I'm always open to redemption.
Yeah.
And I can change my mind, but
the best way I could possibly put it is it's not that I don't like him. He's just not for me.
Cassandra says, you're wrong, Rick. Yeah. I think Cassandra is making a joke about the spelling in the previous post.
You're absolutely wrong.
Whoosh, Rick, I don't know what that means. Everything, believe nothing. Don't know what that means.
Oh,
don't take my post out of context. Okay. I'm not sure what it means then. The world's worst gamer. Okay. Well, you can post again and maybe explain what you meant. Ms. Jensky says, all that remains is the deluded groupies of the dead beast, and they're doing everything in vain because God laughs last. Or actually, Matthew Samard says that to Ms. Jensky. Okay.
Yeah.
Interview Brian Peckford. He helped craft the Constitution and took Pierre Trudeau to the Supreme Court and won, says Constantine. I can't pronounce the last name.
We're working on it, though.
Seogios?
Something
anyway,
like that.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
William says, think for yourself, question authority, follow where the power for the authority derived from. Right. Consider the source and absolutely think for yourself.
Big time.
Yep. That's the bottom line message here. Whether you're watching the Stu Peters video, and again, I'm not saying don't watch it. Go ahead. Take in all the information you can get. That's always been my position. There's good information, bad information, and facts will always prevail. Truth will come out on top no matter what. So I don't care if somebody puts out a documentary that's full of erroneous information. Because as long as you get, as long as facts are still available out there, as long as better quality information, better arguments are available, that information will prevail. As long as people have access to it, give people access to all the information, and people are smart enough to come to the right conclusions. The problem is censorship. When only one side of a story is being told and people are only given one set of information or one set of facts, may or may not be accurate. And sometimes facts are not just facts. Sometimes there's varying degrees of what is accurate or truthful or best, right? What's best practice.
Yeah.
So it's important that all information should be available to people and let people think for themselves, draw your own conclusions. Kat says, who is Chris Sky? You're going to have to look him up if you don't know. Maybe you care, maybe you don't. Go ahead, look him up. He's been pretty popular. Kristen Benny says, right, Rick, we are so desperate. Our country is on the brink. Millions of Canadians rose across Canada and it changed nothing. Protests are not working. Yeah.
Thought.
Yeah.
There's things that did work about it. It just didn't do the thing that we want it to do the most. But I would not say that it did not work. It definitely ruffled a lot of feathers.
I'd say the truckers' convoy certainly did achieve some things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll always stand up for that. I'm very proud of the results that have come out of that. Yeah, Pat King should be free. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
He's a political prisoner.
Yep.
There's
another guy. Maybe you follow him, maybe you don't. I think that Pat King has always had the best of intentions. And now he's paying a really heavy price. There's a guy who ran out into no man's land, right? And now he's in court. I'm not faulting him.
No.
He made his own decisions, right? And what will be as a result of that. And I think every freedom movement such as this, you need some people who are there on the front lines, and inevitably the other side, when they have tyrannical powers, they're going to single some people out and make an example of them. Pat King is one of those people. Tamara Litch is another. Jeremy McKenzie is another.
Chris Barber, another.
So there are people out there who are paying a heavy price, but it doesn't mean we all have to.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see. Religion is division, says Love, a light red buddy. Well, you can argue that. I would say.
Go ahead.
Without religion, we are at the mercy of a man, whoever that man might be at any given time in power. In this case, Justin Trudeau. We can't have that. And it isn't so much that we need a particular God. What we need is the courts to recognize that our rights come from God, not from man. Period. And whatever your God might be, it doesn't have to be a Christian God. It could be another God. But the point is, it doesn't come from government. Our rights don't come from government. That's what...
Or people. They come from something that's above all of us. It doesn't matter what your idea of it is. Secular people don't like the language in that at all. And don't be fooled that discussions around human rights and receiving inalienable rights from God is talk that goes back over 200 years. And it's very important to acknowledge that the reason why that is because politicians aren't able to mess with them And when they do mess with them, they should be punished in a legal sense. I think now is a good time as any to go into the next thing. Speaking of our rights and
Okay.
our
Well, you
charter
know
of
what?
rights.
But let's take a brief 30-second break then
Yeah.
before we transition into that. I think you're going to get into Trudeau and the Charter of Rights. Yeah, absolutely. It's an appropriate time to do that. But let's take this short 30-second break, and we will be right back with Justin Trudeau's virtue signaling on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And you can support our journalism by donating at freedomreporters.com. You can click the hot links in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions, and that will take you straight to the donation page. And if you're able to, we certainly appreciate that. There are costs associated with what we're trying to do here. And as we expand out onto other platforms, those costs are increasing. YouTube is free. A lot of these other platforms are not. We have to pay fees in order to have a proper presence and to be able to actually live stream on those platforms. There are fees associated with that, and there are other costs associated with what we do as well. So if you can support us financially, we greatly appreciate it. We do need your help. We can't just do this all for free and straight out of pocket. So anybody who's able to provide support in that way, we are greatly appreciative. And we have had people step up and make donations. And to all of those who have done that, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We greatly appreciate it. We are fighting for freedom. We are fighting an information war. And hopefully the advice we're giving you here tonight, you're finding to be constructive and helpful. That's really what we're trying to do in providing the advice that we're giving. We're not giving legal advice. We're just trying to instill a little common sense and help people stay on target, stay on track, and make sure everybody lives to fight another day.
Furthermore, you can also help us out big time by hitting the like button. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. These things help us in a big way. You could also select the bell for notification or share it with people. All of these things help us in very huge ways. And once again, to all of you who have supported us and watched us on a regular basis, thank you so much for dropping in. We really appreciate your time and your support. It's phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and not everybody is in a position to donate financially. So just by watching, participating, helping us grow the audience, sharing these videos out, that all helps as well, because the most important thing is that the information gets out there and we are able to provide an alternative perspective, a different point of view from the mainstream media, which obviously we simply can't trust anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on and talk about Justin Trudeau's Charter of Rights and Freedoms virtue signaling.
Do you want me to bring it up?
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, I think, do you have the post?
Yeah. I got it. Look at that. All right.
There it is. So 40 years ago, as of, I believe, yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms was adopted, built around our shared values of equality, justice, and freedom. It protects the rights and freedoms that that define who we are as Canadians and brings us closer as a country. It continues to do that to this very day. And as we work to build a fairer country and a better future for everyone, it's up to each and every one of us to uphold our collective responsibility to the words enshrined in the Charter. And so there you have it. There's the Queen, and there's Fada Pierre Trudeau. And what a joke. So his campaign, his whole team at the Liberal Party have spent all day on social media yesterday, tweeting until their thumbs fell off about this. What a huge disgrace. These are all people who look down on everybody. They don't care about us. Not only that, they don't care about the Charter. They have used the Charter essentially as toilet paper since all this stuff has happened. Yeah, some big problems here. And a lot of trampling of rights. This deserves to be talked about because of that. That this is very slimy behavior. In fact, I'm insulted.
Yeah, I think it is an insult to Canadians. I think that Justin Trudeau plays word games.
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually very abusive because he does this crazy thing where he abuses you on this hand and then over here tells you how nice he is to you. Over here, he stripped Canadians of their rights. He locked people down. He froze truckers' bank accounts, seized property, used the notwithstanding clause to shred the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, while telling people that he was doing all of these things to protect your rights and freedoms. And people are so gullible because they don't really pay close enough attention. A lot of people believe this. Now what's he doing? Now he's virtue signaling on the 40th anniversary of the Charter being signed. And he's telling Canadians what a great thing it is to have these rights. Well, we don't have any rights because he took them away. He showed Canadians that we have no rights, that the Charter is a worthless document. That's what he's done. That will be his legacy. The destruction of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And yet he's sitting here posting this, whether he actually wrote it or not, but it certainly has his name on it.
Yep. He wanted it shared. And I mean, I thought just for fun, we could take a look at the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, eh?
Before we get into that, though, Brendan, well, we can do that, but I want to come back and dissect what he actually writes here because it's important.
Sure. I'll put it back up. Let it rip.
Okay. He is showing that he either doesn't understand or doesn't care about people's rights, just in the way this is worded. He's twisting what rights are simply by saying that built around our shared values of equality, justice, and freedom, it protects the rights and freedoms that define who we are as Canadians and bring us closer together. Okay. But you have to keep in mind what a right is. What are rights? Especially when it comes to rights as defined under, say, a classical liberal ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Rights are about individuals. Rights are about individual rights. That's why we need rights, because rights protect us from the state as an individual. It gives you the right to decide what you do with your body. It says that the state doesn't own your body. You have dominion and sovereignty over your body. You make your own personal medical decisions, not the state. That's one example. But it comes down to individuals, not the collective. But if you continue to read what he writes here, he says, it continues to do that to this very day, talking about protecting our freedoms and defining who we are as Canadians, and brings us closer as a country. That's not really what the charter should be about, or not even really what it is about. The charter is about preserving and enshrining your rights as an individual, protecting you as an individual from the state. It says it continues to do that to this very day. And as we work to build a fairer country and a better future for everyone, the collective, it's up to each and every one of us to uphold our collective responsibility to the words enshrined in the charter. I'm sorry, you don't freaking get it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's not about collective responsibility. Do you see how he has taken this and twisted it and turned it right upside down? Suddenly, a document that is supposed to enshrine our rights as individuals and protect us from him, he's taken that and flipped it around and suddenly made it our responsibility to act in the best interests of the collective, that we have collective responsibility, that the charter is supposed to protect our rights as a collective. That's not what rights are. If you have a collective and the collective takes precedence over you as an individual, then you have no rights. The collective gets to dictate what you are about and what you have to do. Therefore, in a collective society, whether it's a socialist society where the collective is paramount, or a communist society where the collective is paramount and prime, then you have no rights as an individual. Everything you as an individual, you come after. The bigger the state, the smaller the citizen. Individual rights should be paramount. That's how that document was written, with the exception of the notwithstanding clause, which gives the state the ability to just strip those rights away, and we have none. Justin Trudeau, in this post, exposes either his ignorance or his lack of caring. He doesn't care about your rights as an individual. That's what this really exposes. To uphold our collective responsibility to the words enshrined in the charter. So now suddenly you don't have rights, you just have responsibilities. You have a responsibility to the collective. That's not about your rights.
No,
at all. Not at all. So this is a joke. Justin Trudeau has turned the country into a joke. He has turned the charter into a joke. The courts have backed him up. And unfortunately, the Bill of Rights only protects you at a federal level, and it only goes so far. It doesn't address some major issues that you face as an individual, but at least it's something. But don't think that you're going to be able to rely on the Bill of Rights alone to save us or to save yourself. That is a fairly weak document. I think I've made my point here. which is Justin Trudeau has no regard for your rights because we really don't have any. And he has twisted the charter into something that doesn't even resemble what it originally was. He's making it, he's showing you that you don't have rights, you have privileges. And with those privileges, you have obligations or responsibilities to the collective.
And
because he
talk
is
like that's dangerous. Like
he is a communist / fascist. That's what he is. He's a collectivist.
exactly, and we've seen that in House of Commons. Like his whole entire career in politics has always been brought around this whole discussion about being a collective as opposed to an individual. I don't know. It's very troublesome.
It's
Like I
beyond
said,
troublesome. It's sickening.
I feel gravely insulted when I saw that yesterday. I felt sick to my stomach, and you're absolutely right about something here. Like the way you were saying with them gaslighting us all the time. He sounds like an abusive husband, where it's like he punches you in the face and then goes, "Look what you made me do." It's like, what a piece of crap.
Trine Turner has a name for it called communitarianism. Yeah, it's whatever it is. I know this. It's authoritarianism. That's what it is. And that's the other thing about that the document, right? When you twist it that way, when you take this collectivist approach, you automatically by default begin to impose an authoritarian regime over everything. You blanket everything with authoritarianism because you need to enforce socialism. You need to enforce communism. You need to force people to comply and contribute to the collective through taxation under threat of penalty.
Yeah.
If you don't comply, you get fined. If you refuse to be fined or if you can't comply through fines, you might end up in jail. Worse than that, in the worst case scenarios, you might even end up dead, executed. It depends on how far these authoritarian regimes end up going. And we've seen throughout history how far it can go. We've seen how close we came to having people rounded up and thrown into concentration camps if they weren't vaccinated. That's how far it can go. And we saw some people in polling actually supporting that kind of mindset. And that shows, again, that really, when we came that close, we really have no rights because the charter was shredded. And when we needed it most, it was not there for us.
Mm-hmm.
We need a politician today to stand up. We need a new leader, somebody who recognizes this, who really means it, and was willing to stand up and say, as John Diefenbaker did back in the 1960s, and said, we need to enshrine rights for Canadians in the Constitution. We need stronger language to protect people against the state. We need to either get rid of that notwithstanding clause, or maybe even better, a completely new charter that is embedded and enshrined into the Constitution, where our rights can never be taken away, ever, for any reason, period. Because without that kind of provision and that kind of guarantee, you have no rights anyway. Anytime the government has the ability to take those away from us, then you have no rights to begin with. In which case, it doesn't matter what they tell you. It doesn't matter what piece of paper they write it on. If it can be taken away, you have no rights.
It's like the old expression, talk is cheap. Can they show us that they could actually support us with this? Because
Jerry says before 1982, what happened before? Were there no rights? Not really. But the times were different.
Mhm.
And our country had been founded on the idea of freedom. And there was common law and parliamentary tradition and legal precedent had been set going back hundreds of years through the British Commonwealth and where we came from and where our legal system and our parliamentary system came from. And because the focus was largely on freedom, we didn't have authoritarian politicians and governments and socially and governments that were socialist leaning or
Yeah.
even just outright socialist looking to take our freedoms away. On the contrary, our country was founded with the idea of freedom at the core. And we didn't have politicians actively trying to screw us over by taking our freedoms away. In fact, we had politicians like Diefenbaker trying to entrench better language to guarantee our freedoms and do more to make sure that we were protected. And in 82, there were premiers like Brian Peckford who were working to make sure that we had better language and a better document, one that extended beyond the federal level into the provincial realm to protect us from provincial legislation as well. But it's that darn notwithstanding clause that was inserted and the way that Trudeau Sr. worked to kind of undermine a lot of the fabric and the integrity of that document because he wanted more and more, he wanted more of that power shifted toward the federal government at the time. And it got watered down. And now you see what's happened? Nothing. Now we've got nothing because it's been tested in the courts. And when we needed it, the courts let us down. The document let us down. Now, Brian Peckford is suing the federal government, saying that they didn't meet the standard to use the notwithstanding clause. And I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But my opinion doesn't matter. And his opinion, honestly, doesn't matter either if the courts say otherwise. If they give that level of weight to the notwithstanding clause so that the government can then just say, oh, no, there's an emergency. So, yeah, no rights for anybody today. We're taking your rights away again for the next year or 2 years or however long we say, or in the case of Bill 100, permanently. We're taking away all these rights. Then you had no rights to begin with, did you?
No.
Because they get to say, you get to have these privileges for now until we decide to take these privileges away and we put you in detention. Okay, time out for you. No freedom of speech for you.
Yeah. And it's funny. So, should we go off a couple of these and we can kind of give examples of how they've been violated?
Sure, we can do that if you like. Yeah.
So, part 1, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees the rights and freedoms set out, and it's subject only to such reasonable limits and prescribed by law and can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. And there's a concern there. And so it goes on to say everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of conscience and religion. So, was it violated, Rick?
Absolutely, it was violated. We saw churches shut down across the country in an unprecedented display of authoritarianism. Absolutely. Not just in Canada, but around the world. And why? Because when you have a secular government, a government that honestly went to battle with Christianity and with churches, and in some cases, churches and church leaders not even realizing it. When you see that happening, yeah, they're violating people's rights to practice religion in their own way. I'm sorry, but you just, if your faith tells you that you gather physically together as a community in order to practice your faith, then that's what you do. And just because the government says, well, you could just, do a Zoom meeting, it's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing.
No,
It's about
absolutely not.
it's about coming together,
Community.
community, support.
Freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication.
Absolutely been violated. Look at the level of censorship we've been enduring. You're not allowed to say certain things. You haven't been allowed to challenge certain things.
No, you're not. It's very easy to be ousted under a number of things. And look what's happening with Rebel, where we've kind of touched on that a little bit. They're going to lose their ability to do press conferences and stuff like that at government events and that
Well,
sort of thing.
not that they ever really had it.
No,
And honestly, Brendan, we're in the same boat. So it's no different for them than it is for us.
Mhm.
We're facing the exact same problems. And it's not just us either. It's every conservative media outlet, it's every independent media voice out there. It's just going to get worse. And that's what Bill C-18 is about federally. So they're coming after us. They're coming after all independent media voices. And that's also why I'm going to bring this up right now. Please go to freedomreporters.com and donate, because we need to get ourselves set up so that we are on a stronger footing in the next few months ahead as we prepare to survive this onslaught that is coming from the federal and even the provincial governments, but especially the feds with this Bill C-18. Between that and the hate speech laws and the other legislation that has come into effect with regard to censorship and media, and now this new movement to license journalism and decide who's a journalist and who isn't a journalist, and who gets the certain tax breaks and who doesn't, based on what a journalist is supposed to be. When should the government ever decide who a journalist is? They shouldn't. So we need your help in that regard for sure. We really do. I'm begging you, please go to freedomreporters.com, make a donation if you can. If you're in a position to help us, it'll go a long, long way, because we have a lot of work to do here, and we are getting ourselves set up. The fight, the information war, it's just going to heat up in the weeks and months ahead.
got a lot of work to do. And we definitely know that freedom of opinion has definitely been trampled on a lot, where, I mean, it's one thing to have an unpopular opinion in society and you just let the free market deal with it. But it's another thing when you have the government tell Rebel News, for example, at the last election, where Justin Trudeau had refused to answer the question of the Rebel journalist and was like, you just basically crapped all over the reporter that had a calling question. Freedom of peaceful assembly.
That being said, though, I just want to back up. I mean, at the same time, I wouldn't say that we would ever want to compel a politician to answer a question. If they choose not to, they don't have to. But should all journalists be given an opportunity to apply for media credentials? I would say yes.
Yeah. Should be very open.
Now, it is that there are some questions surrounding that, like how many get in? Where do you draw the line? We're seeing an increasing number of independent voices out there. So, who gets approved? Who doesn't? And that's the case not just for government news conferences, but even private firms, private companies where they have news events, media events. Who gets to come in? There's always an approval process. Fair enough. But that being said, there are also ways to accommodate independent voices and even mainstream voices through pool feeds, rotating accreditation. There are lots of different ways to deal with it. But it's pretty clear that what's been really going on is censorship through denial of media accreditation. And that's really what the federal government is trying to do here through Justin Trudeau, saying, you're a journalist, you're not. You are mainstream media, so we like you, and you say nice things about us, but you've been critical, and so we're going to say that you're just not a journalist so that you can't come in and say anything that's critical of us. We can get into more of that, but the point is, yes, absolutely, the rights of the media have been violated.
Big time. Freedom of peaceful assembly. Well, that's been violated.
100%.
It's been violated in Ottawa back in February. It's been violated all across this country for the past 2 years. People have been fined for being outside, no less, to do peaceful protests.
Repeatedly.
So it's been trampled very hard. And I mean, an old lady was hit with a horse and trampled. Freedom of association. Well, we definitely know that the government is investigating people who have associations with people they don't like.
Freezing bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
If you donated to the Freedom Convoy, they put you under a microscope, threaten to take your funds, take your money. Yeah, absolutely. Freedom of association has been absolutely violated. Let me ask you this. Does taking away someone's freedom to associate, does that protect anybody's health?
No.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
So how does the government and how did the courts justify allowing the government to take that right away from anyone based on their claim that there's a pandemic? What's that got to do with anything? But they did.
All under the flag and banner of it's all about your safety.
Yeah. We're here to protect you. It's for your health, for your own good.
For your own good. The greater good. All right, we won't spend too much more time on this, but the last one that's really worth talking about is mobility rights. Brian Peckford is going heavy on this one in his lawsuit. And the reason being is the government has said things like, oh, well, you can't take a plane or a train if you don't have the poke. And then they say, oh, those things are privileges, not rights. Well, yes and no to an extent. Yes, in the sense that when you get on the plane, you should behave yourself and not cause a problem for other people. But no, in the sense that everybody should be allowed to purchase a plane ticket and travel across the country, to leave the country if they so choose, to come back into the country if they want to come back. Those are the big things. And definitely we've had the border closed, and a lot of people have not been able to leave the country. And people have had problems coming back into the country.
more important is the fact that mobility rights are still being restricted for probably millions of Canadians right now, because unvaccinated people are still not allowed to get on a plane or a train or a bus. And in a country the size of Canada, that means that you're not allowed to participate fully in society. In fact, it severely limits your ability to participate in society. It means that you can't go visit relatives in another province in many cases if you aren't able to get there in a timely manner, right? If you can't get on a plane.
Yeah.
You can't go from Ontario to BC in a very efficient manner. If you have to drive,
No.
you have to take a lot of time off work to do that.
Absolutely.
So these provisions are still in place. A lot of people have been lulled into, again, a false sense of security. And they're saying, well, why are these freedom protests still going on? We've seen the premier of BC and even we've seen Jason Kenney say this as well. Well, the restrictions have been removed, so I don't even understand why people are still protesting. We've seen public officials in Calgary especially say that sort of thing. And the reason is because the restrictions are still there for a large portion of the population.
Just because you can't see it, don't mean it's not there.
And maybe, a good friend of mine said to me a while back, he said, well, I got vaccinated and it's not my damn problem if somebody didn't get vaccinated and they can't travel. I don't care. Not my problem. Well, I'm sorry, but it is your problem. It's everyone's problem, because when you allow the government to do that to somebody else, you've just shot yourself in the foot, because now you don't really have any rights either. Maybe they're letting you get on the plane. Maybe you've got that privilege, but you sure don't have the right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. There's I don't know if I should make this point, but look, at the end of the day, anybody should be able to, without discrimination, as long as they're following the laws, should be able to go in and out of any establishment that they so choose, and should be able to take a plane or a train or a bus or something. And the double speak that we get from people like Justin Trudeau, the Liberals, and
Can I just
the NDP.
back you up just a little bit? You said as long as they're following the laws.
Well, these are the laws. There's laws about not hurting people, right? So if you go into a store and you punch somebody in the face, do you deserve to be in the store?
No, I get that.
Yeah.
But to say that you need to be careful about saying as long as you're following the laws, because the reason you can't do that or haven't been able to do that is because they just passed new laws.
Well, that's the thing, right? And so, yeah, I mean, as long as you're behaving yourself like a proper human. But my point being, it's double speak on these government individuals who are saying, oh, well, we can't drive automobiles in this country because when we do that, it creates greenhouse gases, and everybody should take a bus and everybody should take a train instead of doing this. But then they go and ban a sizable amount of the population from public transit. It's like, what? Makes no sense.
I think the important distinction here is that, yes, we need to follow laws that are well established. You can't just walk in and shoot somebody at a restaurant and then expect to be served. There's certain standards of behavior that need to be met no matter where you are in society. Fine. Right? The distinction is discrimination.
Yeah, big time.
And also whether the government is violating your rights. And so if a law is unlawful, then that law needs to be struck down, challenged, taken away. If it's discriminatory, if it's a violation of your rights under the Constitution or the Charter, and I would argue that all of these laws have been a violation of our rights. And I think the courts have been wrong in the way that they've allowed the notwithstanding clause to be used.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about just, well, if that's the law, then I guess we just have to follow that. No, not quite. I understand what you were
No.
saying, but there needs to be a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've done is the government has been unlawful. They've been acting in an unlawful manner because their provisions, their lockdowns, their pandemic measures, in large part, have been unlawful and unconstitutional. And they still are today. There's no way that people should be denied access to an airplane or a train or a bus.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than what we saw back in the day when people were being denied access to service on a bus because of the color of their skin. It's bigotry.
It is
Any way you
bigotry.
slice it.
And that's the difference, right? Because you don't see anybody talking about those days and saying, well, sitting at the front of the bus is a privilege, not a right. You could still get on the bus. You just have to sit at the back. Sitting in a restaurant is a privilege, not a right. You see where that talk goes?
Yep.
And it's just annoying. It is so terribly annoying that people even made that assertion, because that's the parallel I drew right away, and I want everybody to have access to these things in the market.
So Julie Walters says that she wants me to apologize, I guess, for being an a-hole. Was I? It's entirely possible I was. I've been accused of worse. I'm not prepared to apologize yet until I know exactly what it's about. I don't know what that's about, but isn't that interesting? Maybe someone's a Chris Sky lover. I don't know.
I don't know. Looks like they're...
Well, Julie, if you want to explain further, go ahead. I'd be happy to address it.
I'll try and backtrack it.
Call it, Rick. You have the correct view on this, Chris H. I don't know. I don't know what I missed either. Maybe I was...
neither do I.
Rick, I have no idea. I think that person may have lost it. It's possible. Well, I'm not one to rush off and to start apologizing in this politically correct era. I'm not going to apologize until I know what I'm apologizing for. And then we'll see.
I found it.
What is it?
Oh, that's the old one. Never mind.
That doesn't matter.
No,
I am not going to listen anymore. I'll come back to check the chat every now and then. Rick just pisses me off too much. It's too bad. We had a good run. Sorry, Rick was wrong. Okay. Well, unfortunate that you feel that way. Maybe we can repatriate you at some point. Don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Go back to your conversation with Michigan.
who is Michigan?
I don't know. We had a caller on over the weekend from Michigan. We were just talking about Trump, and he was just no, there was nothing really topsy-turvy about that interview at all. The guy was quite thoughtful, I thought. And I wasn't really, Julie Walters, yes. Okay. Trump, yes. I don't know, man. We're going back 2 days. It doesn't, whatever. Whatever. Okay. I don't know. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
For now, you can just say I'm a whatever and be mad at me, and we can kiss and make up later.
Anyway, anybody have any additional?
Now we're going on about Trump again. Well,
Yeah.
that was 2 nights ago, guys. That was 2 nights ago during the call-in show. It's okay, Rick. Texas still loves you, and I love Texas. I
Me too.
absolutely love Texas. I love Corpus Christi. Love that town. Love Dallas.
Yeah.
There's a little town in Texas called Nacona. Classic car capital of Texas. Great little town, great car show there, and a great car auction they have once a year as well. I highly recommend that you guys check that place out. Love
Yeah.
Texas. Love Texas.
If I were to move to the States, it would definitely be Texas, hands down.
Yeah, love the people there.
Mm-hmm.
Love the wide open spaces. Love the weather. I love Texas.
Barbecue. There's nothing better than Texas barbecue.
I just love the people. I love the attitude. I love Texas. It's a great, 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 great place. Love Texas. Yep. Texas is great. Sure is. Ron DeSantis is the only politician we're talking about at this point. Yeah. Well, I love Florida too. Florida's pretty nice too.
Nothing wrong with Florida. It's just,
no.
I'm more of like a, yeah, I'm more in line with Texas than I am with Florida. Ron DeSantis is the man, though.
And everything is bigger in Texas. I know it because I've seen it. I've experienced it. I remember the first time I went to Texas and had a rental car driving down the highway, and there was this gigantic vulture sitting in the middle of the road, and it was eating some dead animal. And this vulture thing, it was huge. It was like Texas vulture, right? I mean, it was like big. And I was like driving and I'm thinking, I don't think this vulture is going to move. I don't think he's right dead in my path. And I had to swerve to go around him. Not only are they bigger, everything's bigger, the vultures are way braver. I swerved to go around him. He didn't even budge. He just kept on munching. That was one of my first and fondest memories of Texas, the giant Texas vulture. Not a great story, but it's a story that stuck in my mind. And the cows certainly seem bigger to me too, the cattle.
Yeah.
Armadillo. Yeah, I never did run over one. Scorpions are big there too, says, yeah, they are.
That's another thing. I like deserts quite a bit. I like deserts a lot. Anything with a wide open space, and Texas definitely offers that.
Yeah, and I think a little more Texas attitude up here in Canada would go a long way to helping us restore freedom.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. A little more Texas attitude. Could use
Stone Cold Steve Austin, the wrestler. He's Texan. He's awesome. I don't think you would know anything about that, though.
So, what else do we have to move on to here, Brendan? Let's take a little break and we can regroup when we come back. Okay, continue our discussion. Move on to our next subject matter right after this brief message from us.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And you can donate at freedomreporters.com, or you can click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions and go straight to the donation page. If you can support us financially with even a small donation, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. We do need all the help we can get, as we continue our fight on the information war, and as we continue our struggle to preserve and restore freedom of speech and freedom of the media. Right now, more than ever, independent media voices are needed. So we certainly would appreciate whatever support you can provide. And if you can't support us financially, you can support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing, because that certainly helps as well. The more subscribers we have, the more it helps get the message out. And liking and sharing also helps with the algorithms. And because we're talking about politics, YouTube doesn't really like that. So the more we get people to like and share, like especially, that really helps work on those algorithms and get us higher in the rankings. And if you share the information, that's also vitally important, because we're trying to get the information out and provide a different perspective than the mainstream media. And that is largely what we are all about here on the Maverick News Channel. And that's what Brendan and I are doing as the Freedom Reporters. So again, freedomreporters.com is where you can donate and support our independent journalism. So we've lost Brendan for the moment. I'm not sure exactly where he has gone. I know he had some new information to share with us, but just to kind of recap where we've been, think for yourself. We did talk about the Stu Peters Watch the Water video, and I'm encouraging everyone to watch that with a critical eye and a critical mind. And also be careful who you follow. Pick and choose the leaders that you choose to follow wisely and carefully, and make good decisions for yourself. If you go out to protest or demonstrate, or if you're finding other creative ways to support the freedom movement, please make sure that you do so in a way that is in the best interests of yourself and of your family. That's vitally important. So that's really it in a nutshell tonight. I think that is the focus of where we have wanted to be with this broadcast tonight. That is really the core message that I hope that everyone has been able to take home with you this evening. And I think that's really the bottom line. So Brendan is back. And we lost you there, Brendan, but you're back.
Yes, the internet box gives me trouble sometimes, but I am here. I will not bore you about that.
Good. Now, was there anything else that you had on tap on your end?
No, I think we should go into the Alex Jones thing. I think we should talk about that.
Sure.
Do you have an article with that, or do you want to use the one I gave you earlier?
Yeah, well, we can do that. Do you have it queued up there?
Yeah, I do. I have something queued up.
I've been watching the last few weeks, and I haven't noticed. Well, you get that set up.
Yeah.
Alex Jones and InfoWars, he seems to be having some financial problems. And I have noticed that in the last few weeks, he's been online, ramping up his appeals for financial assistance. And I certainly understand why. It's because he's facing legal challenges, especially with regard to Sandy Hook. But there are other ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
And his political opponents are dragging him through the court system. And that's proving to be extremely expensive for Alex Jones. I think to some degree, though, he has been the architect of his own misfortune here, because I'm not sure that he has been entirely responsible with his finances, because I've noticed some things over the last few years that make me question how he spends his money. But really, who am I to judge, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gets his money, he can spend it any way he wants. I'm just not sure that driving around in a Rolls Royce is the wisest use of your funds, especially now when he's asking for financial assistance. And I don't know if people are aware of that, but I did notice couple of years ago, he was in a car and he was doing some sort of a live hit. Looked like a live hit, may have been pre-recorded. And to the average person, you might not have known what kind of car he was in, but I know a little bit about cars, and he was definitely driving around in a Rolls Royce. And more power to him, I guess, because his broadcasts have been extremely popular over the years, and he's sold a lot of product. And if you can generate enough revenue from your broadcast to do that, he's as entitled to prosperity as any major network news anchor, as far as I'm concerned. I just know me personally, I would have been putting more money away for a rainy day rather than buying a Rolls Royce. Now, I suppose you can sell that Rolls and recoup the funds from that. And I know that he also bought an expensive piece of real estate, and apparently he sold that off in order to generate funds, but it's still not enough. And so he's, I guess, filed for bankruptcy here. Do you want to talk more about that, Brendan?
Well, I was going to also add he took a helicopter into the Steven Crowder show, the Ladder with Crowder show.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty expensive too. And yeah, so InfoWars files for bankruptcy protection as founder Alex Jones faces defamation suits. Jones, who's being sued after suggesting Sandy Hook's school shooting was a hoax, says he's totally maxed out. InfoWars has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection as, I won't use that word, but the website's founder, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, faces defamation lawsuits over his comments that the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting was a hoax. The bankruptcy filing on Sunday in Texas puts civil litigation on hold while the business reorganizes its finances. The filing came a week before a jury in Texas was set to begin considering how much money Jones, who has already lost the defamation lawsuit, should pay the families of Sandy Hook victims. In the court filing, InfoWars said it had estimated assets of $50,000 US or less, and estimated liabilities ranging from $1 million US to $10 million. Creditors listed in the bankruptcy filing include relatives of some of the 20 children and 6 educators killed in 2012. School massacre in Connecticut. So, I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's that Jones says he's out of cash, and about the bankruptcy filings and other Sandy Hook cases. Yeah, the guy's in trouble. And when it comes to Alex Jones, there's a lot that he's absolutely gotten right. But in this situation, I think he really put his foot in it to some degree. That this is more than about possible. This could be more than about lawfare. I think that there's a responsibility aspect to it in a lot of ways, and maybe calling a bunch of dead people crisis actors or something like that is maybe not advisable, especially when they're children from a school shooting. It's kind of my take on it.
I'm not sure that I want to weigh in too heavily on the specifics of the case.
Yeah.
Because he has his own arguments, and I think it needs to play out in court. And I haven't seen everything surrounding it. I was aware of it when it happened. I was aware. I watched some of what was presented on InfoWars when Sandy Hook happened. So I know exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that there's a lot of information surrounding it and context, and it may not be as simple as he said this or he said that, because there are other things that were said later. We'll have to see how it plays out in court. I will say this. I overall, I like Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm.
He has been right about many, 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 many things that were originally called conspiracy theories. I think he's still right about many things now. And he's opened a lot of eyes. Is he a journalist? Yes, I believe he is a journalist. I think that he conveys information that you don't find in other places. He's absolutely a target. And he's a big target because he has a big audience. And he's conveying information to people that would be considered a threat, especially by people on the left and certainly by the globalists. He is, in many respects, the tip of the spear, as he often says. And so these lawsuits are lawfare. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
The families themselves are some of those people. Look, I don't know what the deal is with any of these individual families, but we need to let it play out in the courts. I'm not prepared to take a strong stand one way or the other. I would only say that it just shows how careful you really need to be, even online, when it comes to making statements, because you can get sued. People, a lot of independent podcasters, independent media voices out there, independent media people, a lot of them are amateurs, and they don't realize how vulnerable they are, how much risk they're assuming when they do something like we're doing right now, because you're leaving yourself open to legal challenges, lawsuits. You say one wrong thing, you are just as vulnerable as someone going on television and making a statement that is not factual and perhaps slanderous or libelous. So we need to be very careful in what we're doing. We need to be professional in what we say and what we do. A lot of independent media people out there don't have the training, the media background, the experience to know how serious it can be. And even you as an individual, when you're posting on Facebook and you're posting on any social media platform, if you're not careful about what you say, you're leaving yourself open as well. I've said that from the early days of the internet. It's only a matter of time before lawsuits start to pile up against even individuals who think that they can just go online and say all kinds of things about people that can be construed or interpreted as libelous or slanderous. You could be charged. And that's another thing, another important point to tack on to what we were saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Make good decisions for yourself. If someone's giving you advice saying the legal advice, make sure that it's good legal advice. Make sure you're getting it from a lawyer.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when you're posting online.
Well, with this case,
And Brendan, your microphone is really loud again. Something's going on with your levels. Really, really loud.
Strange. Is that better?
No, it's still got to come down.
Yeah, there's not any control on it. I could push it away farther, or
yeah, push it away further if you can.
How about that?
That's better.
Okay. Well, with this particular, what we have going on with this particular thing is it already came up in court, and now the jury needs to decide on compensation. So that's the big question. And I mean, hopefully the guy's going to be able to weather it. I do have a lot of appreciation for him as well, and we'll have to see. And
I would say I think he'll survive this. He's
Yeah.
filed for bankruptcy protection. It delays the court case. That's certainly true. His political opponents say that's really what he's doing, is just trying to delay the court case, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I think that given that he's able to file for bankruptcy protection, he probably has the company set up as a corporation or limited liability entity. And so he'll be able to probably restructure and keep things going in one way or another. I don't think this will be the end of InfoWars, especially because the following is so huge
Yeah.
that people want it, and people will donate. People will buy product. There will be revenue. So I think he'll weather this and survive it. There is, you have to keep in mind too that because InfoWars is based in the United States, the audience is probably 15 times bigger than what we can muster on the Canadian side alone. And he's worldwide. So that's why he was able to buy a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
That's why, right?
Yeah.
So there can be a lot of money still there to weather this and to combat the lawfare that is being directed at InfoWars and specifically at Alex Jones. And make no mistake, Rebel News has been in similar dire straits.
Yeah.
And we've seen people step up and donate there. And I know that we're going to face similar kinds of challenges here. So we're trying to get ourselves set up and insulated as much as we can and avoid. I'm trying to take my own advice and avoid being sued, because I don't think there's any sense in running out into media no man's land and getting ourselves sued for no productive reason.
That's a good point. And hey, I mean, there's two sides of the coin on that. And in the United States, Daily Wire was able to do lawfare against Biden's mandates, where he had mandated anybody who has a company of 100 or more people has to get them all Fauci ouchie.
Julie Walters wants me to apologize to MAGA. Okay. I guess I must have said something 2 nights ago to upset the Trump base. Maybe I was misinterpreted or misunderstood. I am not that critical of Donald Trump. I can tell you that I was a Trump supporter. In many respects, I still am.
Mm-hmm.
We had a call-in show simply asking people, can Donald Trump win in the next presidential election? And then we just let people offer their opinions. I honestly don't recall offering my own opinion too much. The only thing that I kind of pointed out was Trump's stance on the vaccines. I think has left him a little bit vulnerable and open to more criticism, because people who had been supporting him, a portion of his base, is now more critical of him because they don't like him promoting the vaccines. But if you think that I'm criticizing the MAGA movement, that's not true at all. I have huge respect for the Make America Great Again movement. They're patriots, just as there are many. I'm a big supporter of the Canadian freedom movement and Canadian patriots on both sides. So perhaps I've been misunderstood. You corrected Michigan, but nobody else. Not sure what you're referring to. I'd have to go back and see what I said. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to apologize because I don't know exactly what I said. So before I apologize, if I said something in error or maybe I said something improperly, I'll certainly look at it. I just don't really quite know what it was I said that set some people off, or at least one person. But yeah, anyway, it doesn't, at this point, let's move on again. We're still going on about something I said 2 nights ago, but I guess I struck a chord there, touched a nerve.
What do you folks think about the Alex Jones situation? Let's get some comments rolling in about that. Do you guys believe InfoWars is going to be able to push through this? Do you support Alex Jones? Do you hate Alex Jones?
I don't know. I like Alex Jones. I think he's very entertaining, and I think that he puts a lot of information out that is of value, and stuff that he has been attacked on. Much of it has turned out to be absolutely true. In fact, I would challenge anybody to say, what has Alex Jones been wrong about? Aside from the Sandy Hook thing, which we'll find out what happens in court. Okay.
Yeah.
And nobody's perfect. So I don't know. What else has he been wrong about? Van Moore says he had a Rolls Royce.
Sorry.
Cullinan. Yeah.
I'll stay out of there. I'll let you.
Yeah.
Always trying to help.
Alex Jones should not be sued, says Be Vegan Now. Marlene Loomis says Biden is an idiot. Yes, Trump would be better. No question about that at all. Biden is a disaster, an absolute disaster. Get Alex Jones on Maverick Multimedia. There's a good idea. Absolutely. I'd love to have him on there. That'd get us banned on YouTube for sure. Has he done any interviews on YouTube with anybody since being banned? Yeah.
Have you been living under a hole, my friend? He's been on Tim Cast and Tim Cast IRL. He's been on Joe Rogan twice while it was under YouTube. He's been on the Viva Fry show with Viva Barnes Law. Yeah, he's made the podcast. Steven Crowder, he was on the Steven Crowder show. Yeah, he's done the whole podcast circuit. He's been on a lot of shows.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can get Alex Jones on the show.
This is I feel Sailor Jerry here. That's how I am.
Alex Jones has a damn good research team. He can back up a lot of his claims. Yes, he can.
Mm-hmm.
Sleepy Joe Biden. U.S. election, use election. Yeah, I know. I agree. Left media has been putting words into Trump's mouth. That's true, too. Trump spends his days in the bathtub with Putin drunk. I don't know. He's the guy who sent the Javelin missiles over to Ukraine, so that doesn't seem too Russian friendly. All Seeing Heart CV 1984.
I'm going to steal that.
It's too late for me. What the heck? I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
Alex is a threat to the New World Order, according to Peter Krantz. Yes, absolutely. And we're seeing that's exactly right. And if it wasn't for Alex Jones, I don't think that the level of awareness out there would be anywhere near what it is with regard to the World Economic Forum, globalism, the New World Order, all of the issues surrounding globalism. Yeah, Jeremy McKenzie was on the Alex Jones show. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am a little nasally. I I tested COVID negative now, so I guess I'm not carrying the virus anymore. I'm not contagious, but yes, I do still have this head cold thing going on. So I'm still self isolating, and I have a little bit of like a cough and asthma kind of going on. It's just mild, just a little bit annoying, but I'm getting better every single day. But yeah, you're right. You can tell you guys are paying attention. I can't hide it.
No.
Not that I'm really trying to. Maybe it's a sinus infection. I don't think so.
Too early to tell.
Around this time of year, I used to get just like this anyway, all the time. And it was largely because of the weather. I think it might even be a little bit of like allergies because it's so damp. And I think there's some mold in the air. I can get like this for a week or two. I get a little bit wheezy. So I'm not even sure that it was even related to my bout with the sea. I don't think it's pollen because the trees aren't out yet. When all that white fluffy stuff is in the air, that gets me. There's usually a week and a half of bad allergies for me every year when that happens. That's coming next month. Yeah. So that's really it in a nutshell with Alex Jones. I think that's about as far as we really need to take that whole thing, honestly.
We'll update you guys as soon as there's more stuff that comes out about it, and we will have a different discussion on it at that point. But hey, I wish him all the best, and hopefully everything's gonna work out okay.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm pretty sure that it will in the long run. He's just maneuvering right now, as he should be, positioning himself, and it'll have to play out in the courts. In the meantime, I'll be tuning in once in a while over at InfoWars just to see what he's up to. And it just shows, again, why it's so important to support independent media voices, right? Because we quickly and often do come under attack. And one of the most common ways to attack independent media is through lawfare. That's what we see really going on with Alex Jones. That's what we see going on with other independent media outlets. That's what we're trying to avoid here. And we are asking for your financial help at freedomreporters.com. If you can donate, please consider going there and supporting our work. You can also click the hot links in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions. And soon our website will be up as well. So we're going to be making some changes here in the weeks ahead as we position ourselves in new ways to try and insulate ourselves from lawfare and new legislation that is designed to censor and silence independent voices like our own. We have a plan in place to make sure that we remain vibrant and online, and that our voice is not silenced, even in the face of legislation such as Bill C-18. Now, I can't guarantee that we will survive that, or if any independent media voices will, but we are going to do our darndest to make sure that we're still here for you, even as Justin Trudeau unleashes his censorship forces and tries to pass Bill C-18 censorship law or legislation into actual law. So all that being said, Brendan, I think what we should probably do is look at wrapping things up here tonight. It is, we've been on now for over 2.5 hours. Was there one more thing?
Did you want to do a quick top update? We'll do a quick James top update.
Sure, we can talk about James Top before we sign off.
Yeah, let's just talk about him before we sign off. We'll give you an update of where he is. Currently almost in Regina, Saskatchewan. So he's almost halfway through. He's hit some weather there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his GPS coordinates currently. He's hit some weather in Saskatchewan. So yeah, he's halfway through at this point, just about. And
I think he's on what, day 58, 59 of his journey across Canada. And if you're not familiar with James Topp, he is marching across Canada. He's a veteran. He's marching across Canada to raise awareness of pandemic measures, lockdowns, authoritarian government measures. He's trying to bring Canadians together in a positive way. And as far as we're concerned, he's absolutely a Canadian hero.
absolutely. So this is his day 55 shout out on April 15th. So we'll give it a listen.
Shout out to Kelly, Randy, Murray, and Twyla.
Murray.
There you go.
Introducing Gumby the Bull.
Yeah, this is a shout out to Randy and Kelly Petra out here in just north of Swift Current, northeast by 40 kilometers. And they billeted us for the night and let us stay with them. And we're incredibly grateful for that. We're having a great time with them.
Can you say hi, Kelly?
Hello.
Thank you so much.
That's our morning shout out. Murray and his family put us up for the last couple of days, and we were able to get a good rest here at Swift Current. And it's folks like Murray who are helping this journey get to its completion. If it wasn't for folks like Murray, we would be a lot farther behind.
Frozen.
Yes. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bless you guys.
And there you have it. You can find out more about James Topp and follow him at canadamarches.ca. That's canadamarches.ca. He is marching all the way from Vancouver to Ottawa to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And as I say, he is a Canadian hero. So certainly worthy of our support. And people keep saying, why don't you be more positive, Rick? There you have it. That guy is super positive. CanadaMarches.ca. James Topp. You want positivity? You just found it.
He's the guy.
Absolutely.
He's the guy. But hey, it's been a great show. We talked about a lot of different things. We had we caught up from stories that were circulating around the weekend. What Justin Trudeau actually thinks about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that he has disrespected so shamefully. We talked about it's in the water and primarily
watch the water.
Watch the water. Sorry, yeah. We provided thoughts on that, and I hope everybody had something new to take away with that. I think it was a discussion worthy of having, and we checked in with James Topp, and I mean, other than that, stay positive out there, folks. We're doing our best, and I'm your co-host, Brendan Kennedy, and I'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And I'm Rick Walker. You're watching the Maverick News Channel. You can donate at freedomreporters.com. So just one last reminder to do that if you can. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, share, and ring the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any of our videos. And thank you all for watching tonight. We will be back tomorrow evening, as Brendan said, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Maverick News Channel. We are the Freedom Reporters, and we are the antivirus program for your mind. Catch you all on the flip side. Thanks for watching.